Alright, so welcome back. Before we move on and add our navigation here to our page, I want to take a moment and kind of clean up our markup because right now it's kind of hard to look at. Everything's kind of jumbled together here. And I just want to show you that you can do this, these kind of things so that you can make it easier for yourself to look at. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to collapse the file explorer here on the left. I'll just simply click this icon over here and collapse that down so we can see more of our markup here. The next thing I'm going to do is after each of the anchor elements for each zodiac sign, I'm just going to put a new line between those. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now we can see we've got all of our little sections separated here. It's a little bit easier to see just the different blocks of markup that we have together here. And we can also put one here too, so separate our main H1 heading element from everything else too. And additionally, if you want to, you can also put a space between the head element and the body element just to make it even clearer that, hey, these are two separate sections. So now you can see it's already a lot better to, and a lot easier to just kind of scroll through here and visually look at and see, the chunks that belong together. And if we save that and if we go back to our browser here, if I was to refresh, we would see nothing different on the page, okay? Everything will still look the same. So those empty lines don't cause any problems here with our markup. So now let's go ahead and get started with our navigation links here to navigate between the different sections of the page easily. So what I want to do is underneath this H1, right about here, I want to write some markup with some links inside of it in a list that when we click on one, it'll scroll our browser window down to the given zodiac sign that we click. So if we have a list here of all the zodiac sign names, if I was to click Pisces, the browser would scroll down. If it wasn't in view, it would scroll down so that we could see this section in view. It would automatically do that for us, okay? So we're going to learn a couple of new things in this, and what we're also going to do is take a look at using some semantic elements to provide better meaning to our markup here to indicate, that this section of code that we're about to write here is a navigational element. There's navigational items in it. So to get started, we have two different types of lists here. We have ordered lists and unordered lists. Okay, so let's just write one. So the way that you would write an ordered list, we'll start with that one first. We'll do a less than sign, OL, a greater than sign, and then you see there's our OL element. Now inside of OLs and ULs, so OL is ordered list, UL is unordered list. Okay, now inside both, nested in them, you put LI elements, okay? So these are line items, so line items in the list, okay? So you can do a less than LI, okay, and we'll close that off. And let's just write some content inside of this LI tag, just kind of placeholder content. I'll copy this and I'll duplicate it a couple times. And let's do 2 in this one, and we'll do 3 in this one, okay? So let's save this and let's go back to our browser and let's refresh. Okay, so now you see when we use an OL for an ordered list, it puts these numbers in front of the content that we put inside of the LIs there. So that's what an OL will do. If we go up here and let's change this to a UL, oops. Okay, now if we save that, if we reload, now we see we've gone from numbers to bullets. Okay, so this is an unordered list. When there's no meaning to the order of the list, or you don't need to indicate any meaning to what's in your list, you can use an unordered list here. Okay, so for our purposes, we don't need things to be in order. We don't need all the zodiac signs to have a numerical place in our list here. Okay, so we're going to use the UL. So I'm going to start changing the content of our LI. So we'll do one LI for every zodiac sign that we have listed out here in the page, and I'll spare you the pain of watching me do it. Again, through our powers of movie magic, I'll go ahead and cut to it, and there we are. So there's our list, all of our LIs inside of our UL. So if we go back to our browser now and we refresh our page here, we can see all of those here. Now they're listed out here, but we can't do anything with them yet. They're not clickable. We can't navigate around using them at all. So that's what we need to fix next. So in order to fix that, what we're going to have to do is we need to wrap all the text content here that we have currently sitting inside the LIs. So this we want to put inside the LIs. We want to put some anchor elements in there. So again, let's do one together, and then I'll movie magic you, and I'll go ahead and do them ahead of time so you don't have to sit here and watch me do it all. So do you remember how to write an anchor element? If you don't, pause the video here and try it again, or go look it up and see, so you can try and start practicing on your own. But if you do, or if you're unpausing the video and coming back, let's get started here. So I'm going to do a less than sign, an A, and then I'll close it off, and then I need to go ahead and grab the closing tag here. Whoops, not that all the way. I'll cut that out of here, and I'll paste it at the end here. Okay, so that's our anchor tag. Now we're going to need, remember, if we just leave it like this, we're not going to see any difference here. So let's go back to our page. Let's refresh. And now, even though if we pull up our inspector, if we were to hover over that element, we can see that, yes, it is an anchor element there, but again, we still cannot click on it. So do you remember why that is? It's because we're missing that href attribute with a value assigned to it. So for now, let's just do href equals, and we'll just leave it just like this, okay? So now, what I'm going to do, and what you should do too, is go ahead and do this for every element remaining inside this list. And cue the movie magic, and there we are. So now we have our href attributes in place, and if we refresh now we see that they are all indeed links. Our icon for our mouse changes when we hover over them. Now clicking them does not do anything. Okay, we can just see that our page just continues to reload here, and that's because, again, like, we just have them empty right now. On the href there is no value, it's just an attribute sitting there with no value to it. So that's what we need to fix next. So what we'd like to have happen is, let's say for tourists, for example, we'd like to be able to click that and then have the page scroll up and stick us right there to where tourist is the first thing that we see. Okay, so in order to do that, what we need to do is two things. We're going to see a new attribute that all elements have the ability to set on them and have a value set. And then we'll see also in action a different way to supply a value for href that will link us to those other places. Okay, so what that is called text fragments. Okay, so now if you're in the anchor element documentation here on MDN, in this section here under attributes, there's a section here under href where it tells you like all the places that you can link to, and text fragments is this one here. Now, the way that this works is, what we need to do is we need to set an ID attribute on an element, and then what we can do is in the href for the link that we want to be able to click to get to that other element that we set the ID value on, for the href we need to supply that ID value prefixed with a hash symbol or a pound sign. Okay, so let's go look at our markup and let's try that now. Let's try with the tourist one. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is come down here and find tourists. So here's our h2 for tourists. So what we want to do is we want to add an ID attribute here. Okay, so we'll just say ID equals, and then inside here we need to give it a unique value. Okay, IDs have to be unique. They can't share. You can't share ID values across different elements. Okay, so always a unique value here. So for us, we can just say tourists. All right, just like that. And now what we can do is, now that this ID is here, so we can come up here and on tourists, what we can do is inside the href we can do pound or hash, and then we can just do tourists, just like this. Okay, so now that we have that, if we go back to our browser here, if we were to refresh, okay, now you see tourists right here. Now if we click on tourists, watch what happens. Ooh, look at that, it scrolled us to that element. Okay, so that's how you can use text fragments to link within the current page that you're on. Okay, now you can also use text fragments like when you're linking to other pages. Okay, if you look at our URL here, what happened is our URL was appended with a pound sign and then tourist on it. Okay, next or after the pound sign. So that is called the fragment of a URL. Okay, it's the fragment portion. All right, so as an exercise, why don't you go ahead and do the same for the remaining elements. Again, what you want to do, so find the h2 for the given sign, add an ID attribute to it. Okay, and then you can just give it the name of the sign. So we'll just say Aquarius. We'll keep it all lowercase. So then once you have the ID attribute added to the h2, then you can come up to the list and you can add that in here. Remember, make sure you prefix it with a pound symbol or a hash symbol, and then you can simply just type in the matching ID name just like that. Now if we refresh and we go to the top here, now we see we have Aquarius. We'll do the same. Bingo. There we go. So go ahead and take a minute and do that for the remaining elements on the page, and I will do the same. Alright, so now that that's all done, let's go look at our browser here. Okay, so zoom back in. Now you'll note once we get to the bottom of our page, it won't be able to scroll everything up. So for Capricorn, for example, if we click that, it's not going to put it all the way at the top because there's nothing left after Capricorn to allow the page to scroll any further. So we're as far scrolled as we can get right here. Okay, so really Libra is probably the only one that we'd really ever see last at the top of the page here. So if we try to do Scorpio, see it doesn't make it up to the top because we've now hit the bottom of what's on of the document and what's available on the browser here. So there's nothing left to scroll to. Okay, so now that we have that, there's one last piece that we need to add here to take our markup to the next level here, okay? And that's, since we're using all these links here in this UL as navigational elements, okay? They serve a navigational purpose for our page. We need to mark them up accordingly, okay? So over on MDN, if we look at the HTML elements again, if we scroll through this list here, we will find a nav element in here. So let's see, scrolling, nav, okay? Now, if we read about this, it will say exactly what I just said. So the nav element represents a section of a page whose purpose is to provide navigational links, either within the current document, like in our case, or to other documents. So if we scroll down here and we look at the example, so here's their example nav element right here. Okay, if we look inside here, the markup here is very similar to what we currently have on the page. Instead of an OL, we have a UL, and then that has some LIs nested inside of it with links. Okay, just like they're doing here. Here's their LI element, and then here's an anchor element nested inside that LI. So again, the only difference, they're using an OL here, we're using a UL because we don't need the numbers, we just have the bullet points. So what we need to do is we need to wrap our UL element in a nav element, okay, to be better citizens of the web. Okay, we want to be helpful to people that need to use devices like screen readers and such to help navigate around the web. If we can write better markup that indicates the purpose of our elements, that will help everybody across the web to be able to use our page, okay? So let's do that now. So let's go over here in our markup, and just above the UL, I'll start it with a nav element, okay? And I'll go ahead and close my opening tag and let VS Code autocomplete the closing nav tag there. I'll cut that, and then I will come after our closing UL element here and add the closing nav tag. Now I want to indent this all properly, so let's go ahead and highlight everything here and tab everything over, so that it indicates that it is nested inside our nav element here, this UL that is. And now if we save this and we go back to our page and refresh, we will see that there is no difference in the way that this looks. But what we've done is we've provided better meaning for this section of our page here. Alright, so our page is really starting to come together here, okay? We've got a true HTML web page on our hands here, right? It's got some nice markup to it, the structure holds very well, and things look good. So what I'd like to do next is, we're going to dive into image elements, okay? So what I want to do next is for each of the zodiac signs, we're going to get an image that represents the animal that corresponds with it, and we're going to display the image for each of those here in each section. So with that, we'll wrap this video up here, and I'll see you in the next one for when we start working with images.